guys. I'm Prisha Agarwal, and my guest for today is someone who has beaten all odds that life has placed against her and has emerged victorious. With roots in a small town in India, my guest has grown her career in places like IIT and Booth to become now product lead at Google, along with mentor at First Round Capital. Welcoming the unapologetically ambitious Shikha Kapoor. Thank you so much for coming on here and telling us about your story. So let's get right into it. You know, we focus on leadership, and since you are product lead, so start us off with telling and describing a little bit about your leadership style.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think it's something that evolves over time. I would say my leadership style over time has definitely evolved to be a lot more collaborative than I was probably when I was starting out as probably a high school student. But I think that a great leader, in my point of view, especially if you want to achieve something big and make a big impact on the world, it's probably you would need to work with a lot of people. It's very rare to find a leader who just makes a big dent on the world just by doing something by themselves. So I think in my point of view, biggest quality of a leader is to be able to bring people along to their vision and to like really figure out how to work best with people. There are times when you have to lead them, and there are times when you have to just stand behind them and encourage them and empower them to move forward. But I think the core job of a leader, in my point of view, is to like work with people and make great things happen as a group of people, which is more than the sum of the parts, essentially.
Wow, yeah, that's actually so critical. Yes.
Yeah, and I
Um,
definitely think all the leaders I've inspired in my career, or even outside, the mentors I've inspired, if I think of it now, I think that was the one common quality they had, which was ability to really inspire people and ability to put the greater whole over their own, personal goals or personal ambitions to make great things happen.
yeah, for sure. So, I talked a little bit about this in the intro that I gave you, but I would love to hear from you. Um, how did you shape your career so far? You started off in a place in India and then you grew to who you are right now. So tell me about that journey.
Yes, I think it's a story of, I like to think that my biggest quality is persistence. I don't give up on anything I take on. But I think beyond that, it's been a story of obviously a lot of hard work, but also a lot of support and a lot of luck at many places, I think. But so I grew up at a little town in India called Ambala. I think some people who might be watching from India may have heard of it. It's an army cantonment. It's a little town near Delhi, which is a capital city in India. And I grew up, I was pretty fascinated by science and maths, but it was a very small town. I don't think we had any resources around. Like, we definitely didn't have internet. I had never heard of email before I went to my undergrad, and I took up computer science, but I had never heard what an email was. So it was fun. But I think that I definitely had that spark in me to of constant curiosity, and I would encourage everyone to never lose that spirit. And I constantly wanted to learn. And what used to drive me was to find ways to learn, even though we didn't have enough resources. Like we didn't have internet, there weren't many good libraries around, but I would find teachers and mentors in my little town to try to kind of learn from them about everything in the world, actually. A lot about science and maths, but also just generally history and politics and geography. And then I think at one point, I remember this was one of the turning points of my life. I was in seventh grade, and we were in a political science class, and one of my teachers was talking about all these big educational institutions that have shaped the future of India. And she mentioned the IITs. And she said, these are the colleges which are the best colleges in India, and they have the best teachers and the best access to knowledge. And these are the most advanced, or I would say most well-equipped schools in India. And I was sitting there thinking, okay, that is where I'm going to study. Because I think because like for me, it wasn't about building a career or anything at that point, at least. For me, it was like, I wanted to just learn from the best. I wanted to learn everything that was available in the world, especially around science. And so if somebody said, okay, that's the best school, in a child's mind, it was like, okay, now I want to go to that school. So then the next question was, how do I get to that school? We knew nothing about that. So I remember I was talking to my parents in like ninth grade. In India, after 10th grade, you have to pick like what area you want to develop more in, whether it's medicine or engineering or arts or humanities. Um, so I was like, I want to study in that school. And they were like, what is that school? Where is that school? What do we do for that? It's like, I have no idea, but that's what I want to do. So let's figure it out. So then we started finding, and then we found like a family friend who had prepared for that. And like she advised me how to start preparing for that. And the first thing she said was, you should move to a bigger city where you'll find better teachers who can help you prepare for the sort of entrance examinations. So I still remember overnight my parents moved just to help me fulfill my dream. So I've been very lucky to have the parents I have, to have the support I have. But then yes, from there it was a matter of working hard, and then luckily I got into IIT Delhi, and even more luckily than that, I got into computer science, which is one of the most like toughest to get into streams other than electronics. So yeah, so I was sitting there, as I told you, I had basically almost never used a computer. I would have used once or twice in school, and I had no idea what internet was and email was. And here I was trying to be a computer science undergrad student. So I would say it was an uphill battle, to say the least. But again, I think with the support of professors and friends and mentors, at every step it has been that, like, about dreaming what's the next step in my career, and then just really working hard, but also cultivating the right support system to make it happen. And people have been very generous.
I love that. You were like, I want to go to this school. I don't know what I want to study. I don't know where it is, but I will go to this school. That's, yeah. Remember, I said at the beginning, unapologetically ambitious. So, wow, that's really that's incredible. So, the IIT came about when you heard about like the resources that it gave you. But when did you start looking at your career like something, of course, you wanted to like build, and when you started looking at it differently?
Yeah, I think at IIT, again, I was pretty focused on just learning, and I loved computer science. I loved coding. Um, and most importantly, I think the what I discovered my biggest skill was what in college is called more as algorithms. But I think broader than that, like, how do you think of a right solution to solve a problem? Like up leveling a problem to, okay, what are the right steps and what are the right parameters we need to think about? That was my biggest strength, and that's what I enjoyed the most. So after school, first I started my career as an engineer. I was working at Intel, and then I was working at a smaller company in India, where I got to work with some of the founders of the company pretty closely. And that's when I was first introduced to the startup ecosystem. So that's when I started thinking that it would be cool to, like, at some point up level my career from engineering to like thinking a little bit more broadly about what do users want and how do we think about the right solutions to solve their problems. At the time, I think I was still not familiar with the product management role. There weren't many of them in India. But one of my friends had started doing this role in this Indian little tiny startup at the time called InMobi. And he told me about it. And he said that, hey, I'm doing this role and this is what this role entails. And you might enjoy it given what you've been saying, the kind of work you enjoy doing. So that's when the first seed was planted. Then later on, I went to do my own startup in India for a little bit, where we were building a hyperlocal services marketplace. And as one of the founders, I think I was also wearing the hat of a product lead there, which I really, really enjoyed doing. And I think that was a time when I learned the first chops of product management. So over time, I wanted to like work in Silicon Valley and really work for cutting edge tech innovations and bringing them to market. So I applied for an MBA, came here. But throughout my MBA, I think I was pretty clear that I wanted to do a product management role. So those are the kind of things I prepared for during my recruiting in school. And I was lucky enough to land an internship at Google. And that's when that's how it evolved.
Awesome. And just out of curiosity, you said product management. You told us about how you initially discovered it and then you slowly ventured into that field. But I feel like product management is such a like general, I would say, or like vast. There's so many responsibilities that come into,
Yes.
right? So I would think that like when you have so many responsibilities, some of them you like, and some of them it's kind of comes along with the job. So which ones are those ones? I would just, we would love to know.
Well, I think that, like I said, the most enjoyable part of my job, and I think many PMs would tell you this, is to really come up with that product vision. Like that's what PMs live to do, meaning really trying to it's the entire process from problem definition, meaning understanding what are the right problems to solve. Are they even worthy problems to solve? What would be the impact if we solve these problems, and then working backward from that, going through this really amazing discovery process, which typically happens in partnership with your user research and marketing and design peers, to come up with solutions that would solve the problems. So that part is typically the most fun part, I would say. And then comes the part about where where rubber meets the road, that okay, now you've created a solution, you have some idea of its impact, so you want to start testing it out in the market. So then actually working with your cross functional teams to build it and land it in the market, which sometimes can appear as more of the drier part of the job, but I think that's also the more impactful part of the job, like when you actually see them landing and people actually using it, and that's when you get goosebumps.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And you also told us that you started off your journey in Google as an intern. And I know, especially for people who are just getting into the workforce, internships are always like opportunities. You're always looking for them. So first of all, tell us about that experience for you. And I know you had previous work experience that you were like properly working. So,
Yeah.
what that transition, how was that? Tell us about that experience.
It was a lot of fun. I had a blast. I think I still remember it as one of the most fun and most amazing learning experiences of my life. And it's interesting, like you said, most MBA students have had work experience before. So it's more of you transition from really working full time to being at least a full time student if you're doing a full time MBA, which is a completely different lifestyle in so many different ways. And then you are transitioning into this somewhat a mid path, like you are going back to working for a few months, but it's only for a few months, and then you have to go back to school. So I think I took that as an opportunity to really learn as much as I could. And Google's an amazing place to do that. Everyone's like, they have pretty structured internship programs. They have sort of structured programs where you can learn from industry leaders within the company in different teams. And then, of course, you can also reach out to your own network. So like I reached out to the Booth alumni within the companies. I set up coffee chats with them, just curiously to learn what all they were working on and what problems they were solving. And I think everyone's generally really, really kind and generous with their time. So I had a great experience just learning not just my own area and my own projects, but also broadly what the company was up to. And I think that went a long way in me forming an opinion on what did I want to work on when I came back.
Mm.
So that was fun. And I think secondly, I think I was really lucky with an amazing team and manager who really helped me, I would say, non-linearly learn a lot of product management skills in those 2.5 months I had. Like, my manager was very supportive with mentorship. And it wasn't just my first PM internship, it was a lot of firsts for me. It was also my first time working in America, my first time working in a different culture in a Silicon Valley company, and my first time officially working in a product management role. So I would say there was a pretty steep learning curve. Um, but it was so much fun that it didn't feel hard.
Okay, and um, as I previously said, lots of people are looking into opportunities like this. So, what would your advice be as someone who's experienced it? And you said it was a lot of fun, it was a lot of learning. What's your advice to those people who are looking out for opportunities of similar kind?
Yeah, I think so. So there's two pieces to it. One is what do you think about when you're looking for an opportunity? And second is, I guess, to your previous question, what do you do when you have the opportunity? Uh, so I think the first piece of it that I advise a lot of MBA students even now is that to really prepare well. And I know it sounds really simple, but it can get pretty lost in terms of how much a student has to do in terms of your schoolwork and all the other social commitments that you have. But I had pretty structured approach, like months in advance of internship interviews, to like really start, even just starting to talk to people who are working in these companies, to understand what their roles are like, read up on the internet what typical interviews are like, even if I'm not actively preparing, just to prepare myself for the preparation in a lot of ways. And I think, and then finally, a couple of months before the interview, I think a school gives you a good structure around that, that there's a lot of students around you preparing, so you can prepare with them in groups. But really, really practice hard and practice smart. What I mean by that is know the company you are targeting and know what they work on, know their strategy. That way you'll come up with very, very thoughtful responses in your interview. And that also reflects that you are interested in the company, that you've done your homework around them, which goes a long way in make showing that you're a good fit. So really don't cut corners on your homework. Read about the financial reports of the company, talk to as many people who work in the company as you can find out, try to form a broader perspective and try to come up with your own opinions on what do you think the company should do differently. When you're in the company, I think I would say don't underestimate the value you bring to the table. People really, really value interns because they bring fresh perspectives to the table, and they are very valuable. They help the team break out of the group think mode and think of a problem completely afresh, the way they might have never thought before. And just really keeping that on top of mind helps, because a lot of times interns or new people can assume, oh, we are too new, we don't know anything about this, and we are working with people who have been doing the same thing for 10 years maybe. What will we be able to contribute? So no, like really always think about what value you bring to the table and keep that freshness and curiosity alive.
Yeah. Um, okay, and now let's move on to more of the work that you're currently doing. Um, and I know a lot of the products that you're working on right now in Google are based around conversational AI. So could you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit more about that, and how you utilize this technology in order to create these products?
Yes, awesome. So I work on Google Assistant, which is basically how do you talk to Google to get things done. So you can say something like, hey, Google, my device might start talking, but hey, Google, create a reminder to do the dishes tonight. Or, you can sort of, I think the vision for Google Assistant is to be the most helpful way to get things done, which is also in line with Google's mission, which is to organize the world's information. But in general, I think the power of voice that I really see is its ability to break barriers, its ability to break barriers of age, its ability to break barriers of gender, and its ability to break barriers in literacy levels and background. I think we constantly hear from a lot of users or billions of people around the world that typically they have to adopt to the way a technology works. Like they had to understand how internet works, how to open their browser, how to go type something there to get what they want, or how do they download an app on their mobile phone or open the app and start to learn how to navigate within an app. The beauty of voice tech is it's an example of technology adopting to a natural human behavior, which is speech. All human beings, or most human beings, just talk to each other. It comes naturally to them. And it's about making technology that accessible and that human. I've definitely seen it in like even in anecdotal examples, like my parents had come from India very early on when I was working on one of Google Assistant's first smart displays, and I had this prototype device in my house for testing and playing with it. And my mom typically gets very anxious around, use, even like if I have to tell her to download a new app on the phone, if I've coached her from here from the phone, she gets very anxious and very intimidated as to, okay, how do I do this? Where do I go? I don't understand this. This is too complicated for me. But I saw her talking to this device like a fish to water. Like I would go to work and she would watch YouTube videos on the device when I would be at work. She would play with it. She herself learned how to do multiple things with it. And I think it's that power of voice to like really make technology a lot more integrated in people's day-to-day lives and a lot more accessible to everyone, which is what excites me to work in this area.
Yeah, that is, I love the way that you included that example because I know like so many times that I've had a similar experience with like people of an elder, like an older age, or like maybe they didn't, during the time that they were like in school or in college, they didn't have this technology. And then all of a sudden it's very new to you, right? And even when you try to
Yeah.
adapt, there's so many different things that you're supposed to learn. So it's a learning process for sure. And I love that you can reduce the amount of effort that you put into that with this new
Yeah,
technology.
you're definitely lowering the barrier to entry for all of these billions of people across the world to uh, make their lives better by understanding with technology and get things done, and to even access internet to get the information they need. Like lots of people ask Google Assistant generally questions that you would ask Google search, but then now it's answering you by voice. So it just makes all those journeys really easy.
Yes. Okay, and I think the last question I want to ask you is what advice do you have for the next generation of leaders?
I think you summed it up pretty well. Be unapologetically ambitious. But if I were to say in my words, I think, yeah, just dare to dream, and then don't just follow them through all the way. You don't have to stop for anything or anyone, and you can achieve anything you set your mind to always.
Yeah, yeah. And one thing though is important is hard work. Not without hard work, because I know, like, just from the way that you're talking about this, you, you put in so much hard work. And I know, like, other people also, schools like IIT or whatever, you really have to put in that hard work once you have that dream. So
Yeah, so I think it's that part of commitment. Like if you have the dream, like are you really
definitely.
committed to doing whatever it takes? And then part of
Mm,
doing whatever that takes is obviously working towards it. But it is that I think that attitude is the key. If like to really dream big and then do whatever it takes to make it happen.
yes. So thank you for serving as an amazing example for that. And it was a wonderful time
Yeah,
talking with
thank you
you.
so much for taking time to chat with me. This was so much fun, and I want to congratulate you for what you are doing. I think it's so inspiring for me to see this because what you are doing enables access to millions of students around the world to learn people's stories, whether they know those people personally or not, or through their networks or not. So you're doing an amazing job, like democratizing that access, which is great.
Thank you so much. That means so much to me. So, yeah, have a wonderful day.
You too,
Bye.
Prisha, and have a great weekend. Bye.
Yes.